Hey guys, MBSC1 again. So Seattle Regionals is in about 2 weeks, so I decided to start preparing for that by playing with expanded decks because, as you might know, if you make it to Top Cut, it is expanded format. So this is my Trevenant Accelgor expanded deck list. Alright, so like usual, we'll start with a Pokemon. Pokemon line in this deck's pretty thick. It's a solid lock deck, so it needs a lot of different abilities and effects to keep it going. We have 3 Trevenant. This Trevenant's ability is Forest Curse. As long as this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, your opponent can't play any item cards from his or her hand. So it's similar to Seismitoad's Quaking Punch, but it's in the form of an ability. And if your opponent uses Lysander to bring up something else, they can play items after that for that turn. So Forest Curse is extremely strong because it prevents your opponent from playing items, obviously, but also because they can't use any switching cards, which pairs really well with Accelgor, and I'll explain that in a second. For Phantump, this is just to set up Trevenant. I ran 4 just to max out the count so that you could consistently get it turn 1. It's really important to be able to set up with this deck, so you need to run a lot of consistency cards. 3 Accelgor. Accelgor's attack is Deck and Cover for 1 double colorless energy, or 2 colorless energy. Does the defending Pokemon is now paralyzed and poisoned, and then you shuffle this Pokemon and all cards attached to it back into the deck. So the way it works is you can use Accelgor's Deck and Cover, and then after you shuffle it back in, you can promote Accelgor so that you can paralyze and poison them, and then lock their items so that they can't play Switch, or Escape Rope, or Floatstone, or things like that to get out of the poison and paralysis lock. So it's an extremely strong combination, but there's a lot of counters to it, and the deck can kind of have consistency issues sometimes. So that's the main reason why it isn't like the best deck in the format. 3 or 4 Shelmet, excuse me. This is just to keep setting up your Accelgor. You need to keep streaming Accelgors every single turn to keep the lock going, so it's important to have a high Accelgor and Shelmet count. Then there's a 1/1 Musharna line. This is for the ability Forewarn. Once during your turn before you attack, you may look at the top 2 cards of your deck, choose one of the cards and put it into your hand, and then put the other card on top of your deck. So this just makes it so that you can keep drawing what you need. Just improves the consistency of the deck, which is really important. Mana is also kind of good sometimes because its ability Long Distance Hypnosis is you flip a coin, and if it's heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is asleep, and if it's tails, your active Pokemon is asleep. So that can be helpful in certain situations too, but it's mostly there just to evolve into Musharna. So yeah, that's there if you're against a deck that you don't need to use Silent Lab against. So if you're against a deck that doesn't benefit from Pokemon with basic Pokemon with abilities, then you go with this because it'll just improve consistency. But if you do go against a deck that has abilities on their basic Pokemon, like Virizion or maybe Malamar EX, Genesect EX, Keldeo EX, those cards, then you want to go with a Ninetales line instead because you want to play the Ninetales line instead because the ability Ninetales has is Barrier Shrine, I guess. I've never actually read the name of it. And it says each player can't play any stadium cards from his or her hand. And the reason that relates to Pokemon with ability, or basic Pokemon with abilities, is because you play Silent Lab down, and then you lock it on the field with Ninetales, so that your opponent's basic Pokemon can never have any abilities. So it's a really strong combination. You basically go with one or the other because you don't really have bench room to fit both lines. So you just got to pick one or the other depending on which matchup it benefits more. But I think they're both extremely helpful. Then there's 1 Dusknoir, 1 Dusclops, and 2 Duskull. This is the last of the Pokemon. This is mostly just here for the ability Sinister Hand, well, entirely here for the ability Sinister Hand, which just lets you move your opponent's damage on their side of the field however you like. So what you can do is you keep locking them with Deck and Cover, and then the item lock, and then if anything's going to get knocked out, it would make it so that your opponent can attack for a turn. So you use Sinister Hand to make it so that they can never attack because that Pokemon will never get knocked out until like the last turn where you want to take all your prizes. So it's a really crazy concept. If you haven't heard of this deck, it's pretty ridiculous. It's not really like any other decks out there. Yeah, so that's it for the Pokemon. Oh, I should explain this. Only one Dusknoir because it's just hard to fit more than that, and your opponent can't really target it down and do anything to it most of the time because they're going to be locked. So you don't really need more than one Dusknoir. I guess the second one would be nice. One Dusclops because I also have a rare candy in the deck, so that kind of counts as a second Dusclops. And then two Duskull because these aren't really going to get picked off very often. Your opponent's usually going to target down either the Trevenant or the Accelgor instead of the Dusknoir. So that's why we have that count. Come on. Alright, as for the stadiums, this deck runs a lot of stadiums, probably more than any other deck besides maybe Groudon. 2 Silent Lab and 3 Tropical Beach. So this deck is pretty expensive because of this card, Tropical Beach. I'm not sure how much they go for right now, but when I got mine, they were like $150 each. So yeah, you're going to have big bucks to run this deck. 2 Silent Lab, this is just so that you can have that consistency with getting it down right before you put down Ninetales. So yeah, this is going to hurt Virizion Genesect a lot. That's going to turn what used to be kind of an auto loss into actually a really good matchup. So if you can just get Ninetales down and Silent Lab down, you pretty much beat Virizion Genesect like almost every time, unless you you know, have some weird consistency problem or start missing supporters or something. And then 3 Tropical Beach is just because early game, this is going to help you a lot to draw extra cards. If you don't know what this does, it just lets you draw until you have 7 cards in your hand, and then it ends your turn. So if you're not going to be attacking, if you're just going to be setting up, Tropical Beach is extremely helpful for setting up early game, especially when you have so many evolutions you need to get into play. Then for the supporters, we can rerun 4N, 3 Chorus, 2 Sycamore, 3 VS Seeker, and 1 Trump card. As far as early game draw, this might seem low because your only ideal early draw supporters are basically N and Sycamore, as it might seem. But in reality, Chorus actually isn't a bad early game supporter in this deck because the deck runs 7 outs to getting Pokemon down turn 1. There's 2 Ultra Ball, 2 Pokemon Communication, and 3 Level Balls. So you can get a lot of Pokemon down really quickly with this deck, making Chorus actually not that bad of a starter. And then the other thing is you have 3 Tropical Beach, so this kind of works as a pseudo-supporter early game too, so you don't really need as many early game supporters, like you don't need the 4 Sycamore. Sycamore actually hurts this deck a lot sometimes because you have so many different evolutions, you can end up discarding the Stage 1s and Stage 2s with Sycamore, so that's why you run the lower count of that. And then Chorus, like I said, you run so many searching cards that a higher count of Chorus is definitely warranted. Then 4N, just because N is great for setup, it's just very strong and solid. 1 Trump card because, I mean, pretty much every deck runs Trump card, but this deck in particular, the only reason you really run it is to get back double colorless energy in Pokemon, because, you know, those can get discarded or knocked out or something like that, and you're really going to need those to keep going with the strategy, so 1 Trump card is important. And then 3 VS Seeker, you pretty much run 3 VS Seeker in every deck, just gives you that versatility, you know, just good for drawing cards. So that's it for the supporters. For the items, there are, well, 1 computer search. This is just pretty much the best day spec. I actually thought about dowsing, which isn't a terrible idea because with this deck, you really need to get back things a lot. Like, for example, the 1 rare candy, you could get that back with Dowsing Machine. The Silent Labs, if you ever end up needing another Silent Lab, you can get it back with Dowsing. Another Floatstone you can get back with Dowsing. But basically, I realized it's more important to have the Comm Search just because early game, you really need to be able to get whatever support you need and just set up. And you can always get resources back with Trump card later, so I think Comm Search is probably the better option. 1 rare candy, this is just for Dusknoir. Sometimes, pretty much whenever you get that rare candy in your hand, you can you know, use one of your many search cards to get the Dusknoir, or you just have it in your hands, you can do a rare candy Dusknoir. It just gets it out a little more quickly. 1 town map. Because there are so many thin evolution lines, like the 1/1 Ninetales and the 1/1 Musharna, and then the 2/1/1 Dusknoir, you really need to know what's prized so that you can take the prize that you need to keep this deck going. It also helps if you have like a double colorless energy prized, or an Accelgor prized, or a Shelmet prized, because what you can do is use Dusknoir to knock out something while it's still your turn, and then take whichever of those prizes you need to keep the lock going. So Town Map has a lot of synergy with this deck. It's extremely good. I don't think you should really ever take it out of this deck. And then if there's 2 Pokemon Catcher, this might seem a little bit strange, but the reason is this deck really can't play Lysander because you need to keep drawing so many cards every turn that you don't really have time to slow down and play a Lysander and then just work with what you've got, because you really just need to keep drawing cards to keep getting that Accelgor into play. So you run catchers instead. This is really good too because you can bring up like a Keldeo or a Seismitoad and then hit it for weakness every turn with Accelgor, so that'll just make it so that you can finish the game more quickly. Then there's 1 Evo Soda. This is good just for getting any of your stage 1s into play. The Dusknoir sometimes too, but mostly not. It just helps the consistency with the deck. 3 Level Ball. This will get out all of your Pokemon with 90 HP or less. So the Accelgor line or any of the basics also can grab Ninetales. So this has a lot of versatility. You can grab pretty much almost anything in the deck. You can grab a lot of it. Level Ball is extremely good. 2 Ultra Ball, this is just so you can grab anything. Sometimes you really just need to be able to get anything. You can't just get a Pokemon with 90 HP or less, or just an evolution. You need to be able to get whatever you need. So Ultra Ball is there for that. You don't run a higher count just because this deck can't really discard a lot of the time. You really need kind of everything in the deck, so it's hard to discard cards. And then there's 2 Pokemon Communication, which is a card rarely seen, but since there's like 20 or so Pokemon in the deck, you'll get a lot of instances where you have another Pokemon in your hand that you want to put back to get another Pokemon, which is what Pokemon Communication does. You put a Pokemon from your hand back into your deck and search for any other Pokemon, if you haven't seen that before. And then there are 3 Float Stones, and that is the last of the items. I'd like 4, but I just can't really fit it right now. Once you get the lock going, you only really need to have 1 Float Stone in play anyway, so it's not a huge deal. You try to conserve these if you can. It's important to conserve these. So that is it for the items. Items is pretty much just search cards. It's all about consistency with this deck. And then for the energy, it is only 4. It is just 4 double colorless energy. The thing is, with this deck, you can't really afford to take a turn to attach an energy, and then on the next turn attach another energy, so that you can use deck and cover. You really just have to attach the 1 double colorless energy so that you can keep attaching and going every single turn. So that's why, in theory, this deck is incredibly good, but sometimes can get, screwed over because you don't draw the double colorless energy or something like that. So that's it for the list. So that's all for the list. Thanks guys for watching. I've been playing this deck I have a lot in the past. I've played this deck a ton last season, so I have a pretty good idea how the deck works, and I feel like with the new cards that have come out, this deck can adapt well to it, using Silent Lab and Ninetales. So I feel like this deck is really strong and expanded if there's not a ton of Toad, because Toad can hinder this deck a lot. You do have the Accelgor though, so you do stand a chance sometimes because you can paralyze them, which makes it so they can't Quaking Punch you for a turn, and then you can also hit them for weakness because you're a Grass type. So this deck does have a chance against Toad, but it does have a hard time against it sometimes too, so just keep that in mind. But aside from that, this deck has pretty much great matchups across the board, and pretty much can beat anything, except maybe Executor can be tough sometimes too. But anyway, thanks for watching guys. Comment if you want to tell me something, like if you like the video, and subscribe for more.